I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Thanks.
And you've been, it's funny, the ongoing thing is over the last year and a half now, I've been really wanting to get from the documentary side of creating into more narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time when I decided to make that decision, I was thinking, who do I even have to work with? Who do I even have that can act? Who do I have that can even guide me through this? And I really had nobody. And I kind of just started putting it out there, like, I want to start meeting good actors. I want to meet good creators, writers, people. And, we just recently worked on a project together and got introduced in a very organic way. And I want to say instantly, I just started gravitating towards you, not just from a creative perspective, but like a spiritual perspective. You're just like this like older brother, big brother that I instantly felt that vibe.
Not like a lot older.
No, like like Kevin and Wayne
like
from
6 months.
Yeah,
maybe.
exactly.
35.
Yeah, Wayne was only Kevin Arnold was how old, and how old was Wayne? Like
I don't know.
Two maybe. But yeah, it was working with you in that short film that we did in the Baptized in Fire, in which we did to make this film. I really learned a lot about myself as a filmmaker, but also how to work with people. And you were one of the first actors that I've really worked with. Actually, you are the first actor that I've worked with who has IMDb, credentials, and I could look it up and go, wow, this person is. And so going into that short film, I was very nervous of, I've done documentaries. Are actors who have credits going to look at me and judge me or think that I'm green? But you made it so comfortable for me to work with you, and you were you made my first experience so cool. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for doing that.
Well, first of all, thank you. That's really sweet of you to say all that. That really touches my heart. And second, I'm glad I could have that for you because I get that. I've directed also, so it's like I get how intimidating it can be. I think if you are a true artist, you should have doubt, and there's a lot of people I've worked with that have no doubt, and I worry about that. But like a healthy skepticism and criticism of yourself. The first feature I directed was a little $50,000 feature, and I was lucky to get a bunch of recognizable and like really like pros. So the movie's called The Waiter. Don't watch it. It's not a great film, but it was my film school film. I didn't go to film school. I just was like, hey, I'll just make a movie. So I was able to get 2-time Oscar nominee Charles Durning, and he was a sweetheart and kind of gave what you're talking about, gave that to me. Dan Laureate, the father from the Wonder Years, fabulous. James Handy, dear friend who sadly passed away, who you might not know the name, but you'll be like, oh, that guy, Robert Zadar. So do you remember Tango and Cash, the guy with the giant chin and Maniac Cop? That was Robert Zadar. And Bobby became like a dear friend of mine, and he was just such a sweetheart, and he had fallen on some hard times and hadn't acted in a while. And somebody was like, oh, I know that guy. You want him? And I was like, yes. And he came on set, and, he was like, hey, Jason, I got an idea for this shot here. What if I come? And that was Bobby. And love you, Bobby. He's somewhere up there causing problems, playing his keyboard. He was just a great guy. And a bunch of other actors. Like I'm probably, and I'm sorry if you're watching this and I'm forgetting you, but a bunch of great actors that kind of gave me that. Because I've also had the other end. I've had actors that were not nice. And for various reasons. I'm big on being professional, and being loving and kind to your fellow artists is essential for what we do. Because as somebody who has insecurities and who has, you go through self-doubt, you can recognize it in other people, or sometimes like I didn't feel that from you, but I also know that some people don't show it. So you should just treat everyone with that positivity, because through the positivity comes the good stuff. We've all been on productions where the negativity comes out, and boy, like it's like throwing a match in a field with kindle, like that can burn down a production real quick. And there's nothing more miserable than being on set and just having that negative energy. But vice versa, there's nothing like going to a production and it's like summer camp, and you're happy to see your friends and you're going to do something freaking cool today and fun. Like I always tell people, when you know, and we all complain about stuff, but sometimes on set when somebody's like, and I'm like, beats digging a ditch. Like we're playing make-believe, you know? I mean, honestly, the physical, the people behind the camera lugging the grips and all the lighting, they're the ones actually like physically exerting themselves. The rest of us are kind of getting to play and get paid for it. And even when you're not getting paid for it, you're playing and having fun, or you shouldn't be doing it. Yeah. So.
And so with that being said, you know, coming into that experience, my main doubt was looking amateurish, you know, coming in and having somebody ask me a question and not having the answer, or the camera department asking and not having an answer. And so, you know, I've worked with a ton of people on production cameras, and I've always felt pretty confident with that. But working with actors, that kept me up like the weeks before, kind of nerve-wracking. And so just to kind of give a little backstory, I don't want to get too much into it, but we had auditioned a bigger, I don't want to say bigger, but an actor that is, you know, had some pretty big credits on his IMDb, and in the process kind of got burned by that person. And you kind of stepped in, you stepped in like 11th hour to take on
Thursday, and we were shooting Friday,
yeah,
I think, or Wednesday, Friday.
So the 11:45 hour.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that has got to be so insane. And it's not like just a supporting role. You were the main actor on that, which is, you know, that hurt me doing that to somebody, because I would never want to do that. But also going into that, you know, I wanted to make sure I was ultra prepared. I did storyboards. And then that's my big thing, is just always being super prepared. Yeah. And so when we stepped on set and we started working, I think it was, I could sense that everybody was a little nervous. And so being in that position on my first time, I kind of just went into, you know, take care of everybody mode. And I felt like you were so awesome with that. And when we started filming, we were still learning the script. I mean, we had no table read. We had really nothing. We just showed up and just started going. Yeah. And so that to me was almost like a blessing, that it started out right off with like, wheels aren't even on the truck and we're trying to have this race. And we did such a great job, I felt like, of stumbling out of the gate, figuring how to put the wheels on, but keeping the trajectory going forward. And then to see how it just started coming together. And then after lunch, I felt like we really started hitting this amazing sweet spot where we're starting now driving the baseball. Yeah. And you know, seeing all this, if I hadn't done all the things that I'd done as a director and all these other harder moments, when that moment presented itself, I might have just folded and freaked out. But also, again, it comes to the dance partner as well. And so when you're working with newer directors, kind of, one, I'm curious, what was your impression of the overall set vibe? Did you feel like it was that I was doing enough of a job to be able to guide the ship, or could you tell there was green there? Or because for directors out there who might be doing this, what are some things that they can?
I think your choice of not wearing pants was interesting.
Assless chaps.
I've not been around a lot of directors that do that. No. Yeah. In serious, so starting from the beginning. So, you know, I had a much smaller role originally, and you know, that's not a lot of pressure. And I was excited to just, you know, I love to be on set. So I felt blessed to have that and not have a lot of weight. And then you're like, hey, do you want to play the lead? And my first thing was like, heck yeah, like that's a blessing, you know, you get more to work with. And it was a dynamic, fun role. And it was a very pensive role, and something that you have to really communicate in small moments too. but also it's intimidating because it takes me a long time to memorize lines, especially. And it wasn't a lot of give and take, which in scenes, it's so much help to have a give and take with a partner. When you're basically monologuing and you're trying to find your own cues, so you're essentially cueing yourself, that can be intimidating. And for me, the start of the day, I was really in my head trying to make sure that I was getting this and getting everything. And also it's an aspect when you're a lower budgeted production and you're moving faster, you have less time to kind of less time to ruminate on choices and stuff. So, excuse me. So you're making quick choices, which there's good things and bad things to that. Or maybe it's like a neutral, there's pluses and non-pluses to that. So the first thing that struck me was how like prepared and professional and directed you were. Like you had your vision and your direction. So there's that. And then there's the other thing of, I kind of don't really, like when I went in, I didn't view you as like, oh, this is like a less experienced director. I just don't kind of look at it like that because it's kind of like a situation of, you've been directing your whole life from the time you were a little kid telling stories or daydreaming and stuff. Like you've been directing. Conversely, there's people who've done 50 films who just kind of like paint by numbers. So a lot of what directing comes down to is taste. You know, some people like the Kubricks of the world know the lenses and know the mathematical equation of how this lens differs from that lens. And, you know, some directors have worked their way up from being a grip and know all the technical aspects. Some directors have, you know, graduated from Juilliard. But what matters is when you go behind that monitor and you can say, we got it, or we didn't get it, and how do we get to getting it? And how do I convey that to an actor? Those are the only things. And really, you know, you can develop that, but I think largely that's kind of connected with one's soul and like who the person is and like your natural talents. You know, I doubt Woody Allen knows how to set up a C-stand. I mean, I don't know. Sorry, Woody. Maybe you do.
Yeah.
But also I think his career has been focused on being behind. Maybe he's a bad example. But you know, I'm sure there are a lot of directors who don't know any things like that.
On the production side, yeah.
Or acting. There's probably directors out there that like couldn't act their way out of a paper bag, but they can see when there's magic. Or they can be like, you know what? I need to tell Billy to like put this pause here and remember this time in his life and give him an example as fuel for getting to the delivery of the line that like makes the most impact or fits. So I didn't look at, I don't really look at directors as being inexperienced unless they just like don't know how to direct. Then I don't consider them directors. And that wasn't you. You were great.
Good.
I enjoyed my time immensely, and James Pippy and Jesse and Marcus and the rest of the cast, those guys are great. And I forget his name. Sulem's great. The entire cast, really talented, and a very pretty, you know, for lack of a better word, a very pretty short. Like some of the imagery you were able to capture and story is impactful, and that's kind of like what we're here to do. Is, you know,
100%. I appreciate that feedback. Yeah, because like I said, as soon as we started rolling and we started getting in the groove and we started just clicking together, all those doubts, all those things that I was carrying in my head, the imposter syndrome, everything just went away, and I just got in that flow state. And then it was so cool. It was like, that moment, the no return moment, and afterwards you get the empowerment moment, and like we came out just swinging, and I remember sitting back going, "Fuck yeah, we're hitting this," and it was so cool, and knowing instantly like that we'd be working together for many projects coming up. Like I really enjoy your work, and kind of segueing into that, like as I'm looking at your IMDb, there's just so many cool projects that you've been in part of, and one of them is one of the most tragic documentaries that you were part of, the Idiocracy. Can you talk about kind of your love for cinema? When did you get into cinema? How did you get into cinema?
Oh, man. So I was raised by my grandparents who were much, much older. And my grandfather loved the movies. He used to talk about, I think it was like a nickel or 2 pennies. He would go and he would watch movies all day. And so I was blessed to get an introduction to film from the movies he watched as a kid, which I think is important because I think a lot of kids grow up and they get like what's current today, like the cartoons, and then whereas I was like watching, I'm going blank. So like, the Bogart movie.
Yeah.
The Bogart detective movie, the
Falcon, the
Maltese Falcon, all those.
Yeah.
And then like I remember my first horror film was House on Haunted Hill, which it's funny to look back at that movie and how rudimentary in some levels it is. But I think it gives a good foundation for a kid learning. And then I got older, and when I was junior high school, I watched the films that were either on the TV for the Friday night, when they would cut it down, or when we would go on a trip, we would have HBO, or we would have like movies, and it was a real treat. We didn't have a theater where I grew up. It was kind of far away. And then we got a dollar theater, so I saw older movies. And I really didn't see a lot of movies in the theater. So it was kind of like spiritual for me to go to a theater, sit with people, and like laugh or cry together. And then I got into college, and Dr. Churchill at the University of Dallas introduced me to a lot of independent, which blew my mind. I was art house and independent. And then I got a job at a Hollywood Video, and I watched every single movie I could find. Like, I got introduced to Jean-Pierre Jeunet and saw all his films, and my friend Ren, who you also know, like we went to go see Train Spotting together.
The baby.
Yeah, and so movies like that really started impacting me. Like I started seeing Kubrick films and more obscure Kubrick films like Barry Lyndon. And I just, like, my love, ever since I was a little kid, I was a storyteller. There's this story my family always tells about how when we would go on trips, I would stand up at the booth at restaurants, and I would like say to the people sitting, "Hey, do you want to hear a story?" And they were like, "You could just go forever. You would just tell these long stories." And growing up in Texas, in Sugar Land, Texas, being in Hollywood or being an actor is something that is out there. It's something that other people do, and you don't think about me being that. It's kind of akin to kids who grow up with professional athlete fathers can see themselves doing that because their dad does that, and they're on the field, and it's like it eliminates this obstacle of
realizing even there's a path that there is there. It's like the guy that ran the mile, right? You can never run a mile under 7 minutes, and then as soon as he did it, then everybody else or whatever the mile.
Yeah, I think it was
it's like
4 minute mile, and then after he did it, the next year 166 people did it.
Yeah, so it's kind of that same concept, right?
Exactly. So if you don't have that concept, if you can't manifest something that you can't fathom.
Yeah.
So what sort of so anyway, so that's kind of like where I started.
And then when did it become an idea to I want to work in films. Like, how did that come about?
So multiple times when I was a little kid, I tried out for a play when I was in elementary school, and I made the play as the lead. And then I totally forgot I was in the play. And we were out for a family dinner, and I was like, I'm in the play. And we rushed to the school, and they had given the part away. And I was like devastated. Then in high school, I tried out, and I was so nervous I didn't make. And then in college, same thing. So I had this, and I tried an acting class, and I did terrible in the acting class because I didn't understand it. And, just because somebody's an acting teacher, they're not necessarily a good acting teacher. And so it didn't click. So I get out of college. I got a degree that is just for conversation at dinner parties, $80,000 degree for that.
Basket weaving.
I got a corporate job, and I did this thing where I did office space where I just bailed, and I didn't tell anybody, and saw how long it took for them to realize I wasn't working there anymore.
My stapler.
So I didn't know. All my friends had money all the time, and they didn't go to college. And I was like, "What are you guys doing?" They're like, "We wait tables." So I was like, "I'm gonna wait a table," and I was the worst waiter ever. So a friend was like, "You should do stand-up comedy." There was a stand-up comedy. Did it, loved it. Didn't love the environment, and I didn't love it was a very cliquey environment. But around that time, Robert Rodriguez kind of had done his thing, and somebody gave me his book, and I was like, why don't I just make my own movie? And that's kind of how it started.
How old were you about this?
I was 53. No.
I was going to say yes.
No, I was 21. I just graduated college. So right around there.
And you're still in Texas?
I was still in Texas. I didn't move out here until I was 30-something, 32. I was late bloomer. Just because my grandparents were elderly and it felt weird leaving them. And I oddly enough, around that same time, so the first script I ever wrote was a comedy. It was a Cheech and Chong weed comedy because I went through a Cheech and Chong phase. And it was actually a pretty funny script. I still think it could work today. And of all people, my grandparents lived by Master P, the rapper.
Oh my goodness.
And he was making movies. And one day he was outside in his front lawn, and I was like, "Hey, can I ask you a question?"
No way.
And I just asked him about, making movies and whatnot. And I was like, I'm writing a script. And he was like, "All right, let me read it." Nothing ever came from that. But,
wow.
But I kind of, from that, I had teamed up with this guy, and he convinced me, no, don't do comedy, do action. Do a low budget action movie.
Yeah, because that's cheaper than low budget.
To this day, I'm like, why didn't I? Which is funny because my original idea for this movie called The Waiter, it was called The Waiter, and it was originally a short film. And it was basically a hitman that everybody just thought was a waiter, and it was kind of a play on perceptions. Kind of inspired by Usual Suspects. Everybody has their different views, which kind of and this guy I was working with was like, "You should make it into a feature." And I dreadfully forced myself to write it. And I originally was like, I should do a comedy about Hitman. And then Barry came out, and I was like, this is what I wanted to make 20 years ago.
Yeah, Barry's great.
But my first script, the weed comedy, is what I really should have done. But anyway, I did it, and I learned a ton. It was a very tough movie to make. We had a DP who was a commercial director, so every artistic shot I wanted to do, he was like, "That's dumb, and it's going to take too long. Let's just lock it down and do a 2-shot." And I was like, luckily I won, which is funny, when he won Best Cinematography. I remember he was at some festival, he was very proud of that. They were like, "So when you shot the buildings like that, why did you do that?" And he was like, "Oh, yeah, just thought it would be cool." And I was like, you mean the monoliths to capitalism?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I got a little precious about that movie, and I thought it was going to open things up. It didn't. And, of all the things I do, I love writing. I love acting. Directing is committing to having a baby. Like you get pregnant and you carry that, and like it has to be something that I'm like really in love with and know that I have to direct this, because man, directing is hard.
It really is. Yeah, I think choosing that right project or even knowing where to start or what to do and developing your voice, and I think that's like such a big part of the directing part that a lot of people don't talk about. When you think about directing, you think about, I'm going to stand behind the camera, I have this cool story, let's make the thing go. But yeah, if the driving force behind it, you are in that, it's not there, it really shows very quickly. And then I kind of wanted to say, when did you land? What was your first role that you got that was it was before Idiocracy?
Yeah, the first role I ever got, and this goes into your question about like getting over that thing of like acting is for out there. VH1, the channel, decided for whatever reason we're going to start making a movie of the month, and they were all like music related kind of biopics. They did one on various different bands, and the one that they did, like one of the first ones they did, was the MC Hammer life story. And I got cast as a mover.
And this is in Texas?
Yeah, this is in Houston, Texas. Sugarland's just south of Houston. So I'm carrying a box, and the guy that played MC Hammer was like, "Oh man, my stuff." And I'm like, "Sorry." And I don't know, I don't even think it made, or maybe my back was to camera and I'm just like, meh. But it kind of like more solidified of like, oh, this isn't some magical thing that I have to be born into some, wizard cult to become an actor. Like you can just, and then I just started doing little independents, and I did a couple more of these VH1 things, and then the first sort of real, I booked like multiple things right in a row. And within that was Idiocracy.
And this is yourself? Or do you have an agent? Do you have a manager?
I had an agent in Houston. Sadly, she's since passed. Actors, etc. And Denise Coburn, rest her soul. She was my agent for a very, very long time when I was in Texas. And she was really well known down there. So yeah, I booked that, and that was a lot of fun. Met Mike Judge, and then Mike had me come do King of the Hill, which kind of was like the impetus for me moving to LA. I remember they were like, I think they called me on like a Friday, and they were like, "Would you like to do King of the Hill?" And I was like, "Yes." And so I drove all weekend and got there on a Monday.
Wow.
Like drove straight there. So yeah, so did that, and then.
So how is it working with Mike Judge as a creator?
He's great. The experience for me was not super great, but it was not super great, and it was super great. I was in Austin, so I was away from my thing, so it was a little bit like camp. I didn't have a lot of days, but I hung out a lot. Terry Crews was on the movie.
He was great.
His audition, so at the time, he auditioned for a couple things. One of those was The Longest Yard, Cheeseburger Eddie. So we had a camera, and he was like, "I need to audition." And we're like, "Oh, we'll shoot it." And I played Adam Sandler, which is funny. So I know at some point Adam Sandler has seen me be Adam Sandler. So that's nice to think about. Yeah, I know. I did not do that. I should have.
That would have been awesome. Mr. Shampoo.
So that, and he had some other movies. And then Eddie. Eddie Perez, we became buddies on that, and then as we told you, some fun stories, and then it was intimidating. It was my first, and it was a studio film, and it was like $20 million, and Mike was always like super chill, like down to earth guy, funny, and also very kind. And I think he saw in me. He came up to me after my take because I was like. So the take was with Luke Wilson, and I'd been there like 2 or 3 days and didn't talk to him at all, and like was intimidated, and he didn't really, care to talk to me. I don't even think he knew who I was. But I'm like the cop in the thing, and they had me in ski boots that are like rounded, and it was at the Austin Convention Center. So there's this giant escalator.
That's
like,
when you have him in the little thing,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
it's a huge escalator, like huge. And all these extras are lined up, and they're like, all right, go ahead up. So I'm with this pole. I'm like walking with rounded ski boots in a helmet where I can't hear anybody. So it's one of those things where you're insecure and uncomfortable, and it's a big thing. And like, you know, my young actor mind is like, could this be my big break?
Right.
Like some executive's going to be like, that day player, bring him to me. So I'm like climbing up this escalator and terrified that I'm going to fall backwards. And I get to the top, and they like put the thing on his neck, and I'm like, I can't hear anything. And somebody yelled action. I didn't hear because I'm listening to my heartbeat in my ears. And all I see is Luke Wilson turns to me. He's like, I can't remember what he said. He said something like, huh? And I was like, oh, that helps me a lot. So now I was like dying inside.
He hates me.
And I think they only had like time. They were low on budget and like had constraints. So I think they only had time for like a take or maybe two. So I did the take, and I wasn't super happy. And I think I was still mic'd, and I was probably cursing myself. And Mike came up and was like, that was funny, man. And so he's, you know, I've gone out to dinner with him a couple times. He's just a good guy.
Yeah.
Like, I think he's a very talented creator, very funny person. He's one of those people who has a mastery of like finding the wavelength of people. Like, that's why King of the Hill was such a great show. That's why Beavis and Butthead, because like people got it, people connected with it. And I think when you have that talent to like make connections with people, it's like very unique, and it's a gift. But I enjoyed my time with him, and I owe a lot to him because of that little role. You know, it is a really little role, but it was a blessing to be in such a, you know, a dynamic film, which, you know, and Mike fought for me too, because the studio, I mean, it's a small part, but like the studio didn't want me, and he fought for me, and they tried to trim down it's a long story, but they tried to trim down my role, and they actually like chopped it up and gave it to other people. And then they had me come in and dub my voice back in over theirs. Wow. Which is like, I guess the most you'll get from somebody being like, hey, you know what? We messed up. Sorry. But that was great. Then I did Harold and Kumar, which was, you know, an interesting experience. Had some good and some bad. Moved out here. And honestly, I moved out here right around 2009, 2010. I don't know the dates, but right during the strike. So I like got here, and then I like didn't do anything for 2 years. Couldn't find an agent. And then I got an agent, and the agent was like, yeah, nobody wants to see you. Nobody cares, da da da. And I was here like eight years with basically like not really doing anything. I directed some stuff, but like I did like a couple network guest stars or something like that, but I didn't really do a lot. And then I was kind of in a bad place, and then COVID happened. And COVID like was kind of a respite, because it was like, you know, no, nothing's happening, but you know what? It couldn't happen. So it was horrible as it was. It also was like a time that I was, you know, it was sad because I'm losing time. And this actor I used to know once said, you know, the sad thing about getting older as an actor who loves to do characters is, all the characters you didn't do, every year one of them dies. Like that's I'm too old to play that character anymore, and that character's dead to me. I'll never be able to play him. So it's kind of a race against time to like be able to. Stella Adler said something like the desire of the actor is to expend all your life energy playing many lifetimes in your life.
Beautiful.
And you don't often get to do that, you know?
And it's not like the 90s where the high school roles were 40-year-old people. Some of those TV shows and movies, like, I'm like, that guy's in high school?
It's like the opposite. I had one where I auditioned and they were like, it's down between you and this guy. And I came to the audition, they had us together. And I was like, he was like 19. And they were like, the role is a rookie New York detective. And I'm like, I don't think there's ever been a 19-year-old detective in New York. I think like you make detective at like 30. Yeah. And I was probably 33 or 35 at the time, which is like fit. I mean, he was like this. And so we go, and I kept asking for redirect. And they were like, no, that's great. Keep doing it. And they had me come back like 4 times. And then afterwards, the director was like, would you like to talk about, we're going with him, but would you like, if you want any feedback? And I'm like, sure. And he was like, well, you were just too like strong. We wanted somebody like really vulnerable and weak. And I'm like, as a New York detective? Like, okay. And also, you know, where was that redirect?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, so it's whatever. It was, you know, not meant to be. And I don't think I can play that New York rookie detective in my old age. But I can play other stuff, and there's still hope for me.
And so that kind of segues into, you know, where is the industry right now? Because, you know, getting an agent who's actually out there shopping you, from more and more conversations I'm having with actors, it seems to be less and less about that. It's almost like you create your own opportunity, and you have an agency to be able to say, I have an agent, so it at least validates who you are, that you deserve to be there in a sense. But where are you currently, or where is the industry right now when it comes to being an actor?
Well, I'll give you a little story real quick about kind of me right after COVID. So coming out with 22, 23. So I kind of looked at my life and I was like, you know, I have not worked during COVID. And then before that, it was like, I haven't worked. And I was like really kind of I'm getting older, and I was like getting in a very like down place. That also comes as an actor. That also comes when you're waiting for someone to call you, because you give up your power. You're just like at the mercy of the fates. And we were about to have another strike whenever that was. It was like June of whatever.
2023 or something.
Yeah. And they were talking about that, and it was maybe like January, February. And I got booked in a film through a friend that let me audition, and they let me The Unexpected's directed by movie. Alejandro Montoya Marin, starring Matt Walsh. Thanks, buddy.
You killed it.
So that kind of like gave me, like, compared to drugs, like I've never done drugs, but like it was like taking this massive dopamine hit of like being in New Mexico, shooting this movie, making great friends like Francisco Ramos, Chelsea Rendon, Matt Walsh, you know, John Kaler, Jerry Bednob, making all these friends that I'm working with for like a month, being so high, loving the movie, and then it's done. And I'm like the little kid that just got back from camp, and I'm like missing all my friends, and like being like, that's what I want my life to be. I want my life to be on set every month, or maybe every other month. And so the next 6 months, there was nothing, like not even auditions. And I was really getting depressed. And then I heard about the strike, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is just like unbearable. And like, I was really questioning like all the choices I had made in life. And a funny thing happened. I got a call from my agent, and she said, I have something for you. I can't tell you what it is, but it's big. Do you want it? And I'm like, of course.
No, I don't want it.
And this is Sandy from AVO. I love AVO talent. They're the best. Peter, and Sandy. I'm like, yes. So 20 minutes later, and this is literally like the strike's like a week away. 20 minutes later, or week and a half away. 20 minutes later, Lupe from Marlene talent calls, and I've known Lupe since we were like 20 years old. Odd story. He was my agent in Texas. I leave, come out here. Somebody's like, oh, you should talk to my agent. I talk to her, and she's like, well, let me connect you with one of my under agents. And Lupe calls me. He's like, Jason, am I your new agent?
How funny.
He calls me and he's like, oh, you have a recurring role on this soap opera now. Great. 20 minutes later, my voice agent calls back and she's like, I have a booking for you. And I'm like, great. Can you tell me what it was now? And she's like, no, this is something else. So, and that was Creature Commandos. And then she calls me back in a day and tells me you got Transformers as Shockwave, which was like a dream come true. So in a day, I got a nice little reoccurring booking, one huge role and one like amazing role working with James Gunn and DCU. And then shortly after that, then I got Eyes of Wakanda. So it was one of those things where I always say, and I started writing a book so long ago about acting and about my journey, but I always say, like, as actors, we eat hope, because tomorrow can change. Like with your film, I had like a one-line role, and then the most improbable thing happens. The director calls me on a Thursday before we shoot, and it's like, hey, would you like the lead? Because life is like that, and you have to be ready. Whoever you said, preparation meets opportunity. And it's a thing where you need to really focus on the fact that there are so many great actors out there that will never be house names. There's so many great actors that will never get that role that makes them
that house
known or at least recognized as, And so to your question, like, from my understanding, and I don't really know all the business, but aside from all the AI and all that stuff, let's just talk about like agents. So packaging is a big deal. So everybody's trying to get their young talent and their talent that's not working. So if you have a film and a producer's like, oh, I can fill these roles through this relationship to get this star, or the star comes, but they come with these people, like a lot of the juicy roles are already taken by the time they come to breakdowns. And then you have to have an agent that's got the clout to get, or the relationship with the casting director to get in the door. And then 99% of those roles are, Billy, your call's here. And that's your role. Yeah, it's a paycheck. But like, is anybody going, hey, that guy that just came in to give Billy his coffee? That guy's a star. No, it's honestly like things like, I just happened to call Alejandro and talk to him. We could have gone without talking, and he never would have been like, you know what, I should cast Jason in this part. I was like I was like a happenstance casting in my opinion. For
the expected.
Yeah, unexpected. Yeah.
And your role was so major.
And it wasn't the guy wasn't envisioned to be like that. He was supposed to be like this really buff, not that I'm not buff, but he was supposed to be like this really buff, like, athletic dude. And I kind of like took it a different direction. And I had asked him, I was like, dude, can I put it on tape doing an audition? If for whatever reason I hadn't called him, or he hadn't called me that day, they might have gone ahead and cast somebody else. And it's, for whatever reason, if I had been like, when Marcus was like, hey, will you do this little independent, which a lot of people are like, no interest. Oh, it doesn't pay, a lot. We wouldn't have gotten to know each other. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to get bumped. Like a lot of people, it's hard to say yes to everything, but it can be really rewarding if you're open to, not to get like all woo woo, but like open to God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. Because opportunities and interesting things happen. If I would have quit and gone back to Houston or wherever, Florida or wherever, I wouldn't have gotten those calls. Hey, so, and people need to understand, like, this life that we choose is not one with a pot of gold at the end. That may happen. You never know. But honestly, like, it's a choice of the artist, not to be cliche, but the starving artist. Like you choose it because you love it and you couldn't do anything else.
Yeah.
You know, I could have gotten a law degree.
Mm-hmm.
Would I have been happy? Could I have done that? No, I'd probably be miserable, and I probably would like do movies in my spare time. And so the industry, in what you're saying, I feel like, as always, I mean, this has been said a billion times, you kind of have to make your own vehicle to make those roles that show the world like what you can do and your ability. And try to get with an agent or a manager that believes in you. I'm with Green Room, and, you know, of course, Lupe at Marlene and AVO, they believe in me. I have a really special relationship with Green Room, Janelle Polk, and she, you know, she believes in me, and she's like rooting for me. But I also have a understanding that, like, she can't just make things happen. She, you know, if it presents, she can do her best, and then I have to do my best to sell it. And that's pretty much all there is. I mean, there's not as much work in LA, and with the movement towards like verticals and other mediums, and it's I went to a play not too long ago, and the people on stage, everybody was on their phones. And like a friend of mine who's an older actor, he was like, I didn't like the choice where like everybody's on their phones. Like, I get it, everybody's on their phones now, but we realized that they weren't just on their phones, they were reading their lines off their phones. And so it's kind of become, as things go forward, rules and norms become laxed. Like, you know, cussing, for a politician to cuss in the 50s.
It was a scandal. Yeah. For
people to cuss on network TV, you know, for comedians to do real blue material, the norms relax. And likewise, like, you know, I remember the time when, I can't remember who it was, there was a tennis player and he wanted to wear like colors at Wimbledon or something. People were like, oh my God. And then eventually that breaks down and somebody starts wearing colors, and then...
Yeah, it was like Michael Jordan with his red shoes, right?
Yeah.
Same thing.
So kind of that same thing sort of happens with the acting, and sometimes it's good for the good, and sometimes I don't think it's good. I think traditional things can sometimes be that for a reason. And like, I want people to know their lines. I don't want things to be thrown together because it's more about producing content rather than like taking 2 years and honing a movie and like, So I do want to talk to you about Transformers, because a lot of people that I've been talking to, you know, with the not as many roles that are available, actors that I'm talking to are trying to figure out ways to stay busy, and so there's been, you know, I'll do voice acting, and so is, from someone who has done the voice act, is there two avenues, or is it almost like you're just an actor and then somebody, how do you get into voice acting, I guess is what, because if someone's looking to pivot and say, you know, I'm doing this on camera thing, but I'm good at voiceover type stuff. Yeah.
What is the pathway to becoming a voice actor, I guess is the...
So I get this a lot. I get this question a lot. And I tell people, because I'll know people that are like, I'm not really working on camera. I'd like to make more money. So I think I'm going to get into voice acting. And that to me is kind of like saying, you know, I'm not really getting very many dates at the bars when I go out to bars. So I thought maybe I'll go to Cannes and go to a premiere and ask out Jennifer Lawrence. they have this perception that's like that's a really bad analogy. Sorry for that. But
what you mean? Yeah.
It's basically like voice acting. Okay. So on-camera acting is, I can't remember what the number is, like 200,000. When I get auditions for stuff we're doing, I'll get like 2,000 submissions.
Wow.
Voice acting, because it's just your voice, you don't need a camera. You can do it on your phone. Everybody can do it. It's much easier to make a demo reel. You get 10,000 submissions. So I don't think people realize it's far more competitive.
I'm saturated.
Just because of the number. Also, what are you bringing? Are you, people are like, oh, well, I've got a good voice. Okay, well, a lot of people have good voices. And a lot of people can do multiple voices. And a lot of people understand. And then, okay, you can do voices, but can you act? And can you act with that voice? Those are two different things. So it's a very, very difficult thing. The first step, and when a lot of people come to me with this, and the first step I say to them is, this is what you do. And I tell them how to make a demo reel. And then I say, do it and come back to me. Invariably, 9 out of 10 of them come back in 6 months, and they're like, hey, I really want to do the voice acting thing. And I go, did you do the demo reel? No. Okay. Well, then you don't want to do it. It's you have to, just like acting, you really have to try to run it like a business.
Absolutely.
With the voice acting, I would say to people, listen, if you want to voice act, sit down, listen to other voiceover reels, develop voices, characters that you can do. You can make a demo reel on your own if you have an Apple editing system or whatever. It's not that hard. You just have to do it and don't have expectations. Just do it and move forward. And if it's meant to be, it will happen. Because again, there's a bunch of people who are really talented who you'll never know their name. There's probably the most amazing script sitting somewhere on someone's desk. They're a great writer, but they don't know how to get it in anyone's hands. And, sadly, that's... Hollywood used to be... When we were in the studio system, for all the ills of the studio system, there was a mechanism set up where they got people in because they wanted to farm talent. And they wanted to get that talent and cultivate that talent. We're kind of the opposite now. Like, you're not under the ownership of the studio, but also you're out there in the middle of the ocean, like trying to find a passing boat that you can get a life raft from.
I love that.
Or you shoot a YouTube video and like go viral.
Or OnlyFans.
Yeah. Well,
I think, I think that's been the overall theme that I'm talking to everybody. And then I know it could be just so easy to say it, but just create your own. And I know a lot of people, will say, it's so easy. We have all the technology, we have all the things. And the thing that I keep running into is how lazy really ultimately a lot of people are. And I think we are in a moment right now where the people that can really hustle, who really give a shit about their craft, there is a direct way for us to kind of redefine and reinvent what the studio, the Hollywood system looks like. I mean, we've seen it in the 60s and 70s, right? And so I think, teaming up with the right type of people, figuring out what is that voice that you're trying to cultivate, and just to do it, but do the fucking work. And I know it's so easy for me to sit down because we do have to, as creators, we're not just directors or actors, we're now the writers. We're also the graphic designers. We're also the editors. We're also the marketing. It's so intense. And if it's not something that you're willing to do, you're, like you said, you're going to kind of sit on the sidelines and just wait for those opportunities. And I hate to break it, but those opportunities just aren't like it used to be. Like, you'd hear the story of the person walking down the street and get discovered. And then you're in this now movie and you're doing this thing. It's so far from that. And then also the last thing I kind of really want to talk to you about is you've kind of now shifted into doing a lot more writing. And right now, currently, with some of the conversations we had, is that some of these talents aren't even being considered because they're now going towards more of the influencer type people, the people that have the following. And you've worked with several influencers who can raise $1 million because they have this big following, and they don't know anything about acting, anything about writing, anything about anything, but they're getting those ideas. What can we learn from someone who's struggling to get their idea from the way in which these influencers are kind of going about and getting their ideas greenlit?
Well, let me add on to one thing you said first, because I think it's a good foundation for talking about that. Is you said there's a lot of people out there that are lazy. 100% true. Because they don't really want to do it. They want to be it.
True.
Does that make sense?
100%.
Yeah. They don't want to be an actor. They want to be famous, or they want the accolades of being, but they don't realize, like, doing, I can't think of the role, but like you think of a demanding role like The Revenant. That was not a fun shoot, probably. Like, let's say you weren't DiCaprio and you didn't have like people running up with like heaters. What if you were doing an independent Wind River level, but it was The Revenant? That would be a hellacious shoot. It would be horrible. And embracing that that's what you're going for is to do a role like that. That's going to be hell. That would eliminate a lot of the lazy people. But there's another component to it that I wanted to bring up to acknowledge is fear. And I think I fall into the camp. Don't be fearful.
Yeah.
Because I never have writer's block. I always can think of an idea. But to sit down and write, I find other things to do because I'm fearful. I'm fearful I'm going to get this script done, and I've written 84 properties. They're like little orphans on my shelf or in my computer, and they're like, make me, produce me. I'm getting too outdated. I'm going to be never, that's tough. And it kind of gets to you because it's like, oh, I'm going to finish this, and then that one won't be done. And so I battle that fear. It's just like within acting, people get really caught up. You have an audition, or you have a big audition, or you just have an audition, and people start really like fixating on it. And I got some advice from an actor I used to know, and he used to say it's like boomerangs. You throw the boomerang, and if it comes back, great. If it doesn't, like, you can't think about it. And that, he told me that a long time ago, but when I finally like accepted that and like really, it helped me a great deal. Not just dealing with after the audition, but the audition itself, like vexing about it. So to your point, and it's an interesting thing. I want to go to the theater and see. There's a movie out called Iron Lung.
Yeah, we were just talking about that.
Yeah.
$3 million budget, and it's made X amount of...
Yeah, and the guy's got like many, and he set up his own theatrical distribution. It'll be interesting. I watched the trailer. I don't know if you saw the trailer, but I was kind of lukewarm on it. It seemed like a Potboiler trailer, but it didn't have like a payoff. Usually Potboiler trailers, you have to have a little bit of a payoff. So I was like, okay. And I didn't watch any reviews because I wanted to go into it. But God bless him. He had the ability to do it. Obviously, he made it. $3 million isn't a huge budget, but it's definitely a budget. So we'll see. I mean, that kind of goes to the thing. There used to be a studio. I can't remember the name of it. Gosh, was it Maker Studios? They were like I came in there one time to talk to them and pitch and stuff. And they were like, okay, what we want is scripts for our creators. And I was like, well, can they act? Like, what is their thing? And what I found was it's people wanting to make projects, but they don't understand. Akin to like me going to build a motorcycle. Like, if I told you that, you'd be like, oh, great, what are you going to build? And I'm like, I don't know.
A motorcycle.
A motorcycle. Yeah, so, it's one of those things where a lot of people are going to do it because they've got the ability. Jake Paul could go make a movie. Will it be good? I don't know. It could be. He could team up with people. He could do a script. He could work to his, that person could magically, have, or not magically, but they could have taste and ability that we would discredit. A lot of times, we discredit YouTube people and TikTok people because they're doing that thing, but they could have ability.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because even like for my series on Origins, it's a YouTube series, and there was quite a moment in there where I would be insecure about talking about it. Somebody's like, "Where is it?" And I was like, "It's a series." And they're like, "Where is it?" I'm like, "Oh, I fucking hate to say this, YouTube." And then it's like, as I'm now getting further into this project, I'm realizing like way more people watch YouTube more than almost all of the streaming services combined, and I find myself watching YouTube, and so. Yeah, I think that's a big part. And I think, like, for me, learning from these people, watching how they're going about these influencers and raising the money is creating your own IP is so important, and putting your face out there, which I know I've struggled with that for so long, because I just want to be behind the camera.
Yeah.
And really kind of embracing that mentality of entrepreneurship of, you're selling your service, but you also have to sell your face. And I think watching these influencers go about it, and watching them being able to get a fund of $2 million for a film, and I'm like, holy shit, they have no talent and they're getting this. So how can I learn from that? And it's really about, for me, building out in your brand and in your IP, and starting to really to put it out there, and then to kind of surround yourself with those type of people who also share that idea. And I know that's kind of a cliche thing to say, but that really truly is been opening so many doors for me, because now I'm sitting in front of you. We just had Yvette Kniper in here. And I'm working with more and more people, and it's the avenues and the doorways are starting to open. So
yeah, and finding people that can kind of slingshot, for lack of a better word, slingshot you.
Yeah.
And that they, you might not have a huge following, but this person has a little bit bigger following, and they can, you can use their gravity. Whereas including them and give them some IP that they didn't have, and they don't have to do a ton of work to have it created, kind of like the project we discussed the other day. And, just kind of, honestly, it's very explorative. It's just like, do it and find what works while you're doing it, and try to have fun while you're doing it. And then when it's done, be like, call it good. And luckily, because it is on YouTube, you still own it. And that's yours, and that can live there. And, in the future, it's all going to be YouTube.
I agree.
Everything's...
I agree.
I think the studio system, like, people are like, nah, you don't want me. Like, I think that's one of the issues. Like, for a long time, it's been non-creatives telling creatives, for the most part. There's some really talented executives, but... there have been instances, believe it or not, of executives not knowing what the fuck they're doing.
Sure.
And being, can we cuss?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
And not, well,
fuck yeah,
well,
we can.
fuck, I didn't know we could fucking cuss.
Fuck yeah, we can cuss. Yeah.
So, and giving bad advice. Dear friend of mine, Roger, we wrote a pilot together, and we took it out. And the first thing they said was, this was a while back. I think we went to some pretty big studios, and they were like, this is a little too gritty. And then, like, The Wire and other shows do really well, and they're like, this new version you wrote us, it's a little network. How about something gritty? Could you write something gritty? And we're like, remember the first one that you told us? So it's you're at the mercy of those people. And it's kind of like how the music industry went, where eventually, when the artists get the power to do things, as long as the artist can balance the business or team up with somebody who compensates with the business side, and then, you start owning more, which gives you more freedom, and you stop having to ask for permission to make your art. You just do it.
I love that.
And hopefully LA, the city will evolve and start realizing, hey, wait a second. Maybe it's not a good idea. Maybe it's not a good idea to put all these restrictions and make it really, I wanted to do an interview downtown. This was like a documentary interview with like a city hall person in regards to something. And so I was being a good little boy, and I called like the
Film LA
permits and all that.
Oh.
And it came out to $8,000 for a 5-minute interview. And I'm like, this is for a news thing. And they're like, And then I was like, what if I do it on the sidewalk? They're like, well, it would be this. And then I talked to a lawyer, and the lawyer's like, you can just take your iPhone and do it for nothing. And I'm like, or like I went to a place, I'll say a place. I went to a place and we wanted to film there. And they quoted us more than what they had quoted. And then I was like, oh, are y'all booked out? And they're like, no, we're empty for like the next 3 months. And I'm like,
makes sense.
So you're quoting me more than what you usually charge because you're empty. And right now I think the studios are they're saying 50%. So maybe they're at 50%, maybe they're at less, but we need more here. We need more work. I heard rumors of a federal film incentive. I heard rumors of people talking about trying to help LA. You can only help LA so much because LA needs to help itself.
Agreed.
LA needs to maybe have a little commission with filmmakers, and they need to tell them, you know, the city is built on movies. Well, after it was built on cattle and oil, but it was built on movies. Like, we need to be movie friendly again. We need to, you know, understand people. Remember that strike when all the people, and then we had the strike, and then we had the housing bubble collapse.
And then the fires.
All the people, I'm talking about like 2000.
Oh, yeah.
But that too. But like the strike that really killed everybody because the housing market thing and the reverse, all the mortgages. Like, that was horrible.
Yeah.
To like I knew probably, I want to say 7-8 people that lost their house. I know 4 people who lost their house in the fires, but I knew 7 or 8 people who lost their house. And I knew people who were like, and I hate to hear it when you get the call from a friend, they're like, yeah, I'm done, dude. I'm moving to fucking Idaho. It's painful. Especially when you know somebody is an artist and they really love and really want to make movies and they have something to give back, and they're just like, but I get it. I would never shame anyone for like throwing in the towel. Yeah, man, like you have a background with the MMA fighting. It's like, you know, you can be the baddest dude in the planet, but when you're getting whooped, there's no shame in your corner being like, for the betterment, for his life. And again, I know amazing actors who just, you know, haven't gotten that chance.
Well, so is there anything that you'd like to plug? Anything that's coming up? Anything that you're excited about?
Well, nothing coming out right now. Still streaming Transformers 1. Watch it, rewatch it. Go buy the limited edition metal DVD case. Like, come see me at conventions if you're a fan. Transformers Con, TF Con in Burbank is always fun if you're a Transformers fan. I'll be walking around there. And of course, The Unexpecteds streaming. I think you can get it on Prime and all the places where you want to stream it, by Alejandro Montoya Marin. It's a fun little comedy. That's about it right now. Right now, I'm sort of like in the, you know, planning next stuff phase. So,
well, I appreciate your time and your insight. And like I said, I love being able to pick your brain on so many different things, because I feel like you're so multifaceted and you see things in such a really cool way. So, yeah, and I look forward to obviously continuing our work together.
Yeah.
And keep the dream alive.
Next time we'll talk about what we're doing.
Yeah, that would be great.
Which is top secret. We can't tell you.
If we told you what's the line, we'd have to kill you.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for everything.
Dude, my pleasure. Anytime.
Much love, brother. Have a good night.